We're back to around 37, 38 knots at the moment. What just happened over there? I think a boat just capsized.
Double kill.
Hello everybody. Okay. 2, 1. Hello everybody, Mr. Sticksman here, and welcome back to Stormworks. In today's video, we are going to be working on adding trim to this boat to make it run a bit more flat at high speed, make it a bit more stable, and we're going to make it turn better as well. That's going to be a really good improvement to the Alpha Z right here. But also, in the last video, you might remember me saying that we're going to add an engine cover that we can lift off and have a look at the engine, access it, repair it, and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to talk about that later in the video as well. And just a very quick thank you to everyone who is subscribing and commenting and liking the videos. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It really does help a lot. But anyway, let's get on with the video. Right then, so today we're going to be working at the stern of the boat here. But before we do that, you might remember in the previous video, I put these fins here for a bit of downforce. We're actually not going to need those anymore, so that's really good. I didn't intend to keep them forever, but they did help us to keep the nose down and not do any backflips. But yeah, today we're eliminating the need for those, and we're going to use a slightly more realistic approach, which is also a bit closer to how the real Alpha Z operates as well. It won't be exactly the same, but it's a bit closer anyway, because the real one does have trim tabs. So our trim tabs are going to go here, alright, and I'm going to use the small fin to do that. So we'll just grab the control fin small, it's called. Put that on the action bar for now. Alright. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to actually delete this pipe and make it enclosed by using a straight piece just there, okay. And then I think just to finish it off, I'm going to put a wedge on top, just so it looks a bit more like a sort of a piece rather than just a block sticking out the back there. There is actually a bit of a piece like this on the real boat anyway, so that's why we've got that here. But at the same time, it's going to help us to put down our fins. And I'm actually going to have 4 fins here. Now, I've done a lot of testing on this and a lot of different methods of achieving almost the same thing, essentially. But I've settled down on one method. So I'm going to use 4 small fins, and they're going to be sort of horizontal on the same plane. So if I just put an extra block there and there, I will put symmetry mode on. There we go. The first couple of fins are going to go here, and we're going to have the negative up and the positive down. Alright. And then I'm going to delete these 2 blocks, and I'm going to put another pair of fins, and they're all going to be doing slightly different things here. Here we are from underneath then, and this is how we're going to have our fins set up. Now, to control these fins, we could use a tilt sensor, and I have tested it with that, and it's alright, it works of course, and that's a very good way of doing it. But today, I'm actually going to use a gyro instead, and it will give us very good results. So, let's go over here now, and I think just for now, I'm probably going to stick the gyro maybe down here. I can get rid of this constant number now, because we actually don't need it anymore. That was for the downforce fins. And I'm going to put our gyro over here. Okay, so here is our gyro, and what I'm going to do is attach the stabilized pitch over to the middle fins here, okay, so the ones towards the center like that. And then I'm going to put stabilized roll into the outer fins. However, I am going to need an invert logic gate as well. So I'll put a numerical inverter down there. Alright. So here we go, stabilized roll. Now the inverted one is only going to go to the right fin here, and then it's going to go straight through from the stabilized roll into the left fin over here. Alright, so now they're all plugged in. I will give them power as well, of course, otherwise they won't be operating. The gyro will need power as well. And finally, what I'm going to do is have the seat operate the gyro whenever I sit in it. So to do that, you just go to logic, data, and then you find the occupied node, okay, the output here, occupied, from the seat, and it goes straight into the gyro like that. Okay, so that basically means whenever I sit in the seat, it's going to turn on this auto hover feature, and it's going to start balancing with the fins there, okay? That's actually done now. However, there are a few more changes to make to improve our performance even more. But what should happen now is that the boat should actually stay quite flat. But when we turn, it also should be stable and it shouldn't start rolling left and right, sort of interchanging between the two. It should lean, but hopefully it will hold a nice consistent lean angle and it won't keep changing. But we are going to test that in a minute, of course, so we'll all see that together if it actually works. I'm sure it will though. Okay, and before we actually test it, we now have to change a few settings in the engine. So what I'm going to do is go over here and I'm going to increase our RPS limits to 27 because the gear ratio is going to go down to 6:5. So basically now the engine is going to be revving a lot higher and it's going to be a bit louder as well. And it, it actually does add to the experience of driving a boat or a car or whatever. So we're going to try that, but also it will increase our acceleration a lot. And I just found that through testing, I'm actually really enjoying having these higher revs. The downside, of course, might be higher temperatures and also increased fuel consumption, but I'm not like super worried about that as long as it doesn't blow up and we don't drink like all of the fuel in 2 seconds. I don't mind because this is more of a build project and it's not made to go to the Arctic in career mode. So that's fine in my book for this particular build here. Now, because we've changed our engine settings here, it might be worth actually adjusting our throttle as well. And to begin with, you might remember that I've done some reversing in this in the past, and it was just way too powerful in reverse. So what I'm going to do is limit our throttle in reverse to, let's see, should I do 0.1? So basically the lever on the throttle here just won't go back very far, stopping us from putting too much power into reverse. And then for max value, I don't really know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put it back to 1 for now, to be honest. It doesn't really matter, but we will not be able to use full power, as you'll see. Anyway, let's just actually connect up that monitor, which we didn't do last time. Okay, then we'll spawn it in and give it a test. Here we go then, we're ready to launch, and I'm quite excited about this, actually. Let's see what happens. Okay, the engine started. Excellent, RPS is increasing there. Right, decent acceleration. We're not using anywhere near full power, of course. Very nice. And look at that, it's quite flat at the moment, isn't it? That's pretty good. Let's just increase our power a bit. How fast are we going? 35, 36, 37 knots there. Very nice. Now let's have a look at some steering then. So I'm going to hold D. Oh, look at that. We're holding a lean. Lovely. We're probably losing a bit of speed though. Yeah, we're down to 30 knots now. But look at that. It's a consistent lean to the right. That's fantastic. We're just holding down D the whole time. Okay, then we'll release it. Speed is going to pick up a bit again when we're nice and flat. Look at that. That's much better, isn't it? Now the question is, right, can we achieve higher top speeds? Now there is a problem here. There's a big problem. There's some good things and there's some bad things about this. First of all, this boat has a surface drive, which means that the propeller kind of sits very close to the surface, kind of even half in, half out of the water, to achieve these really high top speeds, okay? Which we can actually do now with this, because if we increase the speed, you will see the propeller in a minute coming out of the water. The other upside to that, not only being like the actual boat in real life, it does actually make us go very, very fast. The downside to that is that we won't actually get to the potential speeds that the engine and propeller can give us. And you'll see that in just a moment here. But let's increase the speed then and have a look. At the moment we're doing 37, 38 knots, which is pretty good. That's quite respectable, you know. So we increased our throttle a bit here. And speed is increasing, 45, 47, 40, 50, okay, before we achieved like 54 knots, didn't we? Now look at that, the bow is occasionally dipping down into the water, and what's happening is, and we're losing speed at that point, we watch our speed, look at that, it's going 51 knots, and then suddenly into the 30s, then back up to 50 again, mid-40s, 50. And I'm seeing a good 59 knots occasionally, and it would go much faster than that still if we could actually keep this boat level. And see there, it's dropping down into the 30s and then back to the mid 40s and then high 50s, and it's all over the place because we're using basically too much power. So we can help that by, of course, bringing back the throttle here. And then we're going to find a really good balance between the most throttle we can have without sort of making the bow dip down into the water. We're back to around 37, 38 knots at the moment. What just happened over there? I think a boat just capsized.
Double kill.
How did that even happen? It's flat calm, there's no waves. How? Just how? I have no idea what's going on. That's the same boat over there, look. I think that might be the same one. It looks similar. There it is. No idea what happened there, unless there's a megalodon in the area. Oh, I hope not. We better run away from this situation quick. But as you can see, look at that. Really nice and flat. Very, very stable. The boat is, you know, going reasonably quick. It's not 85 miles an hour that the real boat can achieve, but it is quite quick, and we can go a bit faster than this as well. Now let's watch from out here what happens when we apply way too much throttle. So just put it up to like 77. So what's happening is it's rising out of the water, which is what we want. The propeller is rising to the surface, which is also what we want. However, it's going too high out of the water. Okay, because as the speed increases, we're basically, the trim is allowing us to rise out, but at some point it has nothing to sit on because it's kind of trying to jump out of the water. And what's happening here is you can see the propeller is actually leaving the water for the most part, and also the fins as well are coming right out of the water here, so they're no longer applying thrust and control for the boat. And so because it doesn't know what else to do, it slows down and the nose dips down as well because nothing is keeping it up. And then we lose speed, and then of course the propeller goes under again, and the fins are under, and they start operating again, and then it rises out and jumps out and they can't do anything. And then it's just this cycle of suddenly control and then no control, control and then no control. All because of where things are positioned on the boat and in relation to the water. So what I found is that I can't actually increase the top speed of this boat anymore. There's a point where we can't get any faster, and that point is sort of around sort of 50 to 55 knots is good, and then anything quicker than that is going to start rising out of the water too far and things are going to go wrong. So I'm stuck now, guys. I can't actually increase the speed anymore. Let me know if anyone has got any tips about this. Obviously I want to keep it relatively close to the real version of the Alpha Z, and I have tried using tilt sensors instead. It actually just gives pretty much the same result, because either way, when you get to these higher speeds, the propeller and the fins are just going to come out of the water. I've also tried lowering down the pitch fins as low as they can go, and you pretty much get the same thing, because you'd think, right, if you put the fins lower in the water, they're less likely to leave the water, and therefore they'd have more control under the water for longer periods of time. However, it just rises above them as well, and they're useless pretty much. So I've also tried shortening the length of the propeller as well, so that it has more chance of staying under the water, because the longer it is, the more sort of leverage it has, the more angle it can achieve and come out of the water. But again, at some point, that doesn't help at all either. However, besides all that, I'm still very happy with this. It's still quite fast, and it's a lot of fun to use. Right, let's take it back in and go to the next thing. Okay then, now as I said before, we're going to now talk about the engine cover for this boat. And I've got some sad news, guys, but I have made it, or I've made one anyway, and I'm going to show you why this version that I've made here is no good at all. From what I can see on the real boats, you can just lift this thing off, essentially, and then access the engine, and then, you know, just put it back on all by hand. I can't see any tracks or anything that it runs along, so yeah, I'm assuming that you just sort of lift it off, put it wherever you want, access the engine, then put it back on again. And to do this, I have used door frame edges, and let me just show you here. What have I got here? I've got door frame, you know, corners and edges and stuff like that, and then on the actual door, I've got the usual door panel edges as well, okay? And it works. Now, I've got the seal locked here, so if we spawn it in, you'll see that we're not going to sink. And that's because that door panel there is sealed, so it can't let any water in, all right? Now, what you can do as well is if you go into logic here, you can see I've got a constant on signal just for testing this, and I can unseal the door controller, the door frame controller, all right? So now if we spawn it in, we can actually lift off that panel, but you can see that it's sort of not completely connected. because it's not locked, alright? But you can see that if you just grab the handles here, look at that, you can pull it off. Brilliant. Actually, I might grab it with both handles. That's why I put 2 on there, because it's rather heavy, and that is the problem, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, okay, guys? But look at that. So now we can get our welding torches out, we can get our fire extinguisher, and we can repair it. On the downside as well to this is that we'd have to actually reroute our air intakes from there, which we can do. It's not a big problem, but I have had to make it smaller so that it fits in with the door panel edges. So the vent is now a bit smaller in this case. And as you can see there, these are the air intakes with our engine shut off valve as well. So that would have to be changed if we were keeping this setup. Now we come to the big issue. Oh look, no, oh, we are sinking. Ah. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't realise that we could sync like that. Maybe you have to have the frame controller on all the time, even if there's nothing connected to it. Anyway, guys, let's take it back in. Right, so I'm going to seal it back up again. That was one big issue we just found out there. And here it is. So we're putting on signal straight into the lock seal there. Now, the other issue, let's have a look at this, guys. We just stay on the dock and have a look. Now the exhausts are, well, one of them is completely under the water, whereas before we had this door on, or engine cover here, those exhausts were both nicely out of the water. Also, half of the rudder is under the water as well, and look how much it's just sinking down at the back in general. That is not because water is getting into the hull now, because of course we've just sealed it off right, so no water's getting in. Why is this then? Why is this happening? Well, it's because these door frame panel edges and everything else are so heavy. They are incredibly heavy. And I'm going to show you that now in the workbench. Now let's have a look at the door frame then, which is the sort of frame that goes around the outside first of all. So we've got these 4 corners, okay? Now they're quite big. Normally with normal blocks that would have a mass of 3, okay? Just 3 because we've got 3 ordinary blocks here. But in this case they weigh 15 each, right? So that is a mass of 60 just from the 4 corners here, whereas normally it would be 12. So on their own, these 4 corners are a lot of weight, and that would make a difference if it was just them, but we don't have just them. We've got a lot more than that here as well. Now these here are door frame edges, okay? So they're like, they join onto the corners, but they're edges. They have a mass of 5 each, which makes sense because if these are 3 blocks and they're 15, then one of these blocks would be 5, okay? We've got lots of those though. How many have we got here? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So the mass of these door frame edges here is 80, as far as if I've worked that out correctly anyway. That is really heavy. 80, add 60 in the corners as well. I mean, that's 140 weight or mass right there. And then we're not even talking about the door itself. Now all of these things, okay, it's a different component, the door panel pieces, they have a mass of 5 each as well. So if we have a look here, we've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. We've got a mass of 100 here just for this door, and that's excluding all the blocks in the middle. That's just around the edge, okay? So adding all this together, you know, 240, it's very, very heavy. Where normally, let's just see how much it would normally weigh. It's going to be 9 times 7 because we've got 9 this way and then 7 this way, alright? So that would have a mass of 63 if they were ordinary blocks. If we had some of them as wedges, which, you know, I don't know if we did, but let's say we had some of them as wedges, it'd be potentially a mass of under 60, okay, well under 60 or even under 50. That would be really, really light in comparison to something which is like 5 times the weight of that. Example being this door right here. Okay, so very sadly, that is why I can't see a way of having an engine cover that we can take off and have the boat perform and float as we want it to. So guys, if anyone does have any ideas about this, if there's a way of achieving this but keeping it super light, ideally exactly the same weight as it was before or very close to that same weight, but having a sort of cover that we can take off and access the engine as well, please do let me know. But I actually don't know of any other way of doing that myself at the moment, okay? But of course I'm willing to change this idea up and make it better if we can come up with a solution between us somehow. Anyway, let's go back to the latest version that works. And as you can see guys, this is the latest version that we set up just before I showed you that engine cover one. And look at that, both exhausts, I mean that lower exhaust, it does occasionally touch the water, but only just. and the rudder is, well, the top half of it is all out of the water. So that's how we want it to be, right? That's as good as we can get it. You know, we might be able to improve it a bit, but that's basically much better than with the engine cover there. Very, very sad about that. But I hope that in the future we can find a way of doing it. So as I say, do let me know if we can somehow sort that out. I'd love to have the engine cover on there if possible. Alright guys, but that's all we've got time for in this video. We have achieved what we set out to achieve at the beginning. Well, sort of half of that anyway. We've got it to turn really nicely. We've got it to sit nice and flat on the water as well. We're sort of maintaining pretty high speeds as well, so that's really, really good. I haven't seen that boat before in this game. That's a nice boat. In the next video, I'm going to be focusing on painting alone. So that's going to be really fun. I love painting in this game. It's nice and relaxing, and it can make a massive difference to the look of anything. We're going to add a lot of visual details at the same time as actually possibly changing the actual overall colour of the wood here as well to get it even closer to the original, because I think this version, this colour is a little bit too rich, and I think we can fine tune that a bit and make it much better. Alright guys, but with that being said and done, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. I'd really appreciate that. It helps me out a lot. And thank you so much everybody for leaving your suggestions and comments and all of that. It's just amazing. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.